Hello, today I'd like to talk about why I feel compelled to make these videos about vendor booths and what makes me think I might be qualified to do so. Because if I'm being honest, I'm not the biggest seller in my vendor mall. There are people who sell more than I do, there are people with larger businesses than mine, and there are people who have probably forgotten more than I'll ever even know. So, why do I feel like I have something worth sharing? It's because I've been doing some version of this for a very long time and I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. Hello, my name is Renee and I own the Back Swamp Boutique at a vendor mall called Antique to Chic in Jacksonville, North Carolina. I've been at this mall for, I think, August will be 3 years. And I'm wanting to share my journey, share some of the things that I've learned even before I started at this mall, some of the things that I'm learning while I'm there since it's such a large mall. And so let's get into it. Back in the early 2000s, I opened a children's consignment store with a friend. And less than a year later, she just up and left the business. And suddenly I was trying to run something that I wasn't prepared to run on my own. I hung in there for a few months after she left, but not for long. And that time, I also didn't have a very supportive spouse, so that made it even easier to kind of jump ship. Fast forward 15 to 20 years, it's 2020, and I find myself in a very similar situation. I had opened another business with a friend, which I ignored that red flag, but what you gonna do, right? She's brilliant. She's still my friend. I found out quickly, though, that we had a very different vision of what this business should be. I'm sure she found out too. And once again, the partnership ended. And once again, I was left trying to carry something that was bigger and more complicated than I had expected. I did manage to run this business for about 2.5 years, I believe, after she left. But it was a struggle and it almost took my sanity for various reasons. Looking back now, it is almost strange how similar these two experiences were. Like I said, I kept the second store going for a couple of years, but it was stressful. There were things I wasn't prepared for, there were things I didn't understand yet. There were mistakes that I made that I would never make today, but I did create some boundaries for myself that I would, as a direct result of that business, that I would never let anyone cross again. And as frustrating as those experiences were, they taught me things no book or classroom could ever have taught me. And now, in between the timeline of these two stores, I started doing vendor booths. At the time, my very first vendor booth, I was mostly selling things that I made from reclaimed wood. I painted signs and decorative pieces that I just thought looked amazing. And that's when I learned one of the first big lessons in this business is just because you love something doesn't mean customers will. Now, once you learn that, you're not going to unlearn it. Later, I started consigning in a store, a boutique near the coast. She specializes in consigning with local artists. She's an artist herself. And I did fairly well, especially considering I was treating it more like a hobby than a business. But then life happens. We had a hurricane that came through and it impacted her business, and it didn't take her long to get back up and running. But I stuck around a little while, but my priorities finally ended up kind of changing. I still consign with her from time to time. It's a wonderful, truly fantastic atmosphere. And I feel like if I could spend more time just being an artist, doing artist things, that I would definitely make this a larger portion of my business today. But every one of these experiences added another piece to my puzzle. I've had great landlords and terrible landlords. I've had wonderful business neighbors and nightmares next to me. I've rented spaces that were absolutely worth every penny, and I've rented spaces that I should have walked away from the minute I saw them. I've made money and I've lost money, and I've been excited and discouraged. I've made decisions that worked beautifully, and I've made decisions that blew up in my face. And honestly, I think that's exactly why I have something valuable to offer. Now, people often assume that the best coach is the best person or the top person on the scoreboard, but that's not always the case. Some of the best coaches were never the best athletes. What makes a good coach isn't perfection, it's experience and perception. It's being able to look at a situation and say, I've seen this before and I think I might know what to do. And, you know, when someone tells me they're struggling with a booth, I don't just understand the problem academically, I've probably lived it. I've stood in my own struggling booths wondering what I was doing wrong. I've overbought inventory, I've underpriced inventory, I've ignored problems I should have fixed sooner just hoping they would go away, and I've stayed too long in situations that I should have left. And all this is to say that I've done enough to recognize warning signs now when I see them. And, you know, that's really why I want to make these videos. Not because I have all the answers or have done everything perfectly, but because I've spent years learning lessons that might help someone else avoid a few of the potholes that I fell into along the way. And also, just to let you know, if you've ever felt like you're figuring this out just one mistake at a time, you know, you aren't alone. I've been there too. A lot of people have. And honestly, in a lot of ways, I'm still there. I'm still learning, I'm still making mistakes along with celebrating victories, and I'm still trying new things and finding out what works and what doesn't. The difference is these days, I don't beat myself up over it like I used to, and I don't overthink it like I used to. I don't feel like I have to have everything figured out in order to share what I know and what I've learned. I'm finally at a place where I'm comfortable saying, this is what worked for me, this is what hasn't, and take what helps and leave the rest. And if some of my experiences help another vendor avoid a few expensive mistakes, or see their business a little differently, or take their business a little more seriously, or just have an answer to the question when somebody looks at you and says, well, it can't be that hard, can it? Why are you so stressed out over that? You know, so here on this channel, we will talk about booth ownership, customer behavior, the psychology of merchandising, sourcing, pricing, vendor mall dynamics, maybe some of the things that might be a little uncomfortable to talk about, but really do make a difference between feeling frustrated and feeling confident in your business. Now, I don't claim to have all the answers, but I do have a lot of experience, a lot of stories, and probably a few more mistakes left to make. And if this sounds interesting to you, sounds like something you would enjoy being a part of, please consider subscribing and coming along with me on this journey. I would love to have you. Thank you for watching.